to start by saying I love how much they used Lucy in this episode.
Mm,
Mhm.
definitely. She's been that recurring presence for so long. And now I feel like she was literally taking Nancy by the hand and pointing her in certain directions.
Mhm.
It's been interesting because she was very much an antagonistic presence at the start, whereas now it feels bestie sounds too close, but it definitely feels like there's some kind of unspoken rapport between the two of them. Like Lucy knows Nancy's the one that's going to solve for murder here. So she's not she of course she's terrifying, of course, but she's not it feels like that animosity and that antagonism isn't directed towards Nancy now. The two of them are very much working together, and I love that about it.
Same, and all the water dripping. I mean, those hardwood floors are getting messed up, but all the water, all the water dripping is so nice. And that she led the I guess the opening sequence was quite intriguing. I was like, oh, okay, girl. But I
Right.
was like, oh wait, this is a dream. It's a
Yeah.
dream.
Oh my God, I know. That was crazy.
I know. I said last week Nancy was very much at a crossroads when it came to the men in her life. I was like, I was not expecting it to literally manifest like that in the opening scene of the next episode. Yeah,
Mhm.
like that was attention grabbing without a doubt.
For sure. And I got some juice and crumbs, which I thought we were done, but we were not. I mean, like, yes, the sign is on the door. We are on our way out. We're just closing, we're getting closure as we move further and further into the next relationships. But I appreciated it.
Yeah, it was like a pathway to Nick and George. She
Hmm.
was she was a little bit jealous.
She was and communicative. I mean,
Yeah.
that's who she is as a person. But the fact that we weren't just like there, it wasn't immediate closed off. She told him what was wrong. And he also like stepped in front of her and was like, "You didn't push me away. What's wrong?" And so then she answered it. I appreciate that about their relationship. I also like. I was like, "How hard in the end game did you want to go?" He bought half of the restaurant.
I know.
Overnight. We always say they're not planting crumbs here or like planting seeds. They're like it's full blown tree at this point.
I know, my goodness. And I wish they had actually let us see him carve his name next to hers under one of the
Mm,
tables.
yeah,
Maybe we will.
No, yeah, okay. I want that. I don't know. As a Jushin shipper who's in mourning, I don't know if I'm going to become a Fanson shipper. And I'm not even really on the boat of Nancy and Ace simply because we haven't quite got there. But Fanson is rather adorable. And I
mhm.
Hmm.
appreciate how they work well together. And that she was like, get a project. And he was like, fine, I'll get yours.
It's very different to Nick's relationship with Nancy, and I think that's why it thrives really well. And you got to see the two of them kind of contrast. And I know George took a bit of offense at the fact that Nick just dropped everything and followed Nancy, but I do think that at the end of the day, there was an important thing to do here. Yes, it certainly looked like he was yet again just dropping everything because Nancy needed his help, but of course there was an important problem at hand here, and I do think of at the end of the episode, him and George find that common ground here, and I think there's definitely like it feels like there's a level playing field between the two of them, and you didn't always get that with Nick and Nancy because the way she would sometimes trail him on or wouldn't talk to him or whatever. It never felt like they were on a level with each other. Whereas because we have that like automatic ground from the foundation friendship between Nick and George, it thrives in conversations like that. And I really like seeing them on screen. They're a wonderful partnership, regardless of whether they're heading in the romantic direction or not. The dynamic's great.
I think it showed his
Sure.
loyalty too. Like, even though he was kind of just like disappearing to help Nancy, it was like he's loyal to be a helpful friend. And I understand where George is coming from. Like, it's hard to zoom out when it feels like it's at the expense of herself. Like,
Mm-hmm.
she's like, you left helping me to help somebody else. Like, what? Um, but to me, I was like, oh, he's loyal, but it just looks so it's a weird situation to be in. Like, when he was explaining himself, he was like, I wasn't running after Nancy. I was like helping. But like on Georgia's side, I was like, I'm in both sides of this argument. Like, I understand both of it. And that, I feel like that's always the best writing when you can
Mm-hmm.
when they effectively communicate what each character is feeling, and both of them are correct or can be correct.
For sure. And this one thing was you should have said bye. Like you were literally talking to her before Nancy came in. You sat down with Nancy, and then you were just gone.
Mhm.
So like yes, you needed to go help someone, but George, I'm leaving. It would have been
Yeah, like a quick like, hey, gotta BRB.
yes, and he did not do that. So, but I love how like it wasn't an over the top sort of annoyance on her part.
Mhm.
It was just the right amount of annoyance to be like, you dropped me, and I came out with things to shuck. I thought we were bonding. Like, so I do like watch me become a huge shipper by the time
I mean, you
we.
might. You know what I also love about the show, which I was thinking about, and I kept thinking about it throughout the episode, and like I had to rewind a bunch of times because I kept like drifting off. That's to no fault of the show, it was just me. Um, there are so many instances where like there are things that I've questions that I've had about the show. Like I was like, how is the Claw making money? Or like when is Bess gonna be British again? Or there's something else, I think. But they always answer it like
They
so
do.
quickly. And I was like, I love that. Like when I have natural questions as just a viewer and a fan, and the show knows that. Like it's I was just obsessed with that. I was like, oh, I got both of those things answered so quick after I asked them. And they're
Yeah,
not like super important, but it was just like as a fan, those like little things you pick up on, you're like, why isn't this happening? And then they're like, here it is, shut up. And I'm
Mhm.
like, great, thank you.
but there are opportunities for character development and
Mhm.
exploration too, because learning all about how George, like the people of the Claw fed her and her sisters, like that she has her name carved into all basically all of the furniture. That there was someone she was answering to when it came to the amount of money she was bringing in. There's a reason why she's been stressed out this entire time about the Claw being empty. I know that Nick was the inquirer, but at first I was like, not her doing all of this. And for that lady to pop in like she did nothing. And was just like, I'm stuck in a cell. This is nice.
Right.
I know. I thought she was gonna be like, oh, this is amazing, JK. And then, oh my God, Dawn. Hashtag Dawn is over party.
But I agree, and I feel like they didn't just make like those two moments you mentioned, Bess and George and the Claw. Of course, they didn't just address them. They did, like Sabrina said, made them important character moments. And it feels like, even though, of course, the Lucy and the Nancy stuff was very much at the center of this episode, none of those stories felt important. And it's amazing how, like, even the Bess one then tied into the main one in the end, because Bess and the Marvins were having dinner with the Hudsons when Nancy burst in. Um, it all came together really nicely, but at the same time, it didn't come at the expense of character development. They actually enhanced the character, both characters, because again, you got to see how important the Claw was to George. They did answer the Claw wasn't making money, it was in dire straits. George went to Ryan for help, and he couldn't help because his money was tied up. So it all added really benefited the overall story. I feel like they told these stories at the exact right time because they had so much rich stuff going on around it that ultimately helped to thrive.
Yeah, everything
Another
came into a
thing,
head.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember saying last week I was like the only men that I trust are Nick and Ace, and then the show's like, well, Ryan's about to do the right thing, and Carson also might do the right thing, and I was like, I'll believe it when I see it, but you're making points.
Meanwhile, Owen's acting all shady, even if he
I
did have the
still
right
don't
intentions.
trust
I
him.
know, I
So like,
know.
am I supposed to just like accept that Bess is a Marvin now and like that all like sorted itself out, or are we gonna get more on that?
I think I want to say that we're going to get more on that because it was interesting. Like, did he know that did he know that Elizabeth is a cop?
I have no idea, but that whole sequence, let's just dive into it, was incredible.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I thought Nancy was just like taking the ship down, but oh my God, I love being tricked by her.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I was like, there has to be more to this. There has to be. But yeah, not only did she walk in like a boss and take down the most odious, powerful man on the show in an instant, she had like Elizabeth and the FBI as backup. It all worked out beautifully. Um, yeah, and I love the fact that it made Nancy question herself, because we did say, as great a character as she is, she's very much flawed. And as each episode goes on, she learns a little bit more about herself, who she wants to be, but also who she doesn't want to be. And I think this episode played with all of that beautifully. And the very last sequence of all, when they took down the Hudsons, played with us beautifully, because we didn't know which side she'd ultimately fallen on.
Yes, it was so good because it was also messy. I loved how Bess was really trying to eat her bland soup. And like these like the Hudsons and the Marvins were just trading barbs. And she's like, I just wanted to be a part of a family. And what is this? And then now her is Diana wants her to make a strategic alliance with what is her name, Amaya, which of course is gonna mess up her relationship with Lisbeth. She's like, you
Yeah.
can just be friends. As a Diana, you want to marry her to Amaya. They can't just be friends.
That's gonna be a mess. I think I ship. I'm gonna call it Lisbeth.
Oh,
Oh,
I like
nice.
It
that.
doesn't really
Yes.
roll off the tongue, but I really love them in this episode. The way Lisbeth, kind of inspires Bess to accept herself. Like she didn't bat an eye when Bess was like, "I live in a van." She was like, "You have the coolest trinkets I've ever seen." Like she didn't care, and she inspired her to be herself and be British, which I love. And again, I had to Google to make sure that she was British in real life because I was like, I'm so confused because she does both accents really well. I was like, so what is the truth?
Their character moments were great. It's a great episode for characters. And I love the just to go on the effects for the show. Besides what they were doing with Lucy, especially when she pops up into the dreary family painting that looks like
Mhm.
it's a CW key art for some. Well, it looked like the revenge poster from that old from that show on ABC.
Yeah, like who hangs that in their home?
But I also love the practical effects. I'm assuming those practical effects of the haunting in oh, I forget the character's name, but the haunting in the survivor of the
Mhm.
Bonnie Scott's apartment with all the water and the
That
people
was
banging on the glass.
terrifying. I
It was
was like, I
great.
couldn't believe that Nancy and Nick could see that as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the thing because you see in so many shows like Ghost Whisperer or whatever, when someone's experiencing a vision, only the person is experiencing the vision.
It's just
So
Jennifer Love Hewitt standing in a town square talking to herself.
I mean, where is the lie? But the fact that Nick and Nancy could see it as well, the fact that then you got to see it also from like a three-dimensional approach, that you could see him holding on to the window and everything. It made it very realistic, very authentic, and very real. It sounds so cliche to say it, but it made it feel so much that much more realer the way it was approached, and also the camera tilting to give this the ship effect. It
Yes.
was very realistic and really brought us into it. And as the show continues to toy with the supernatural without ever fully going into it, but you did get the teaser that the visions only started happening 3 weeks before, which is when they did the seance. So they're very much responsible for opening that door to the supernatural. So again, it was such a realistic episode, but at the same time, really, really, really played with the supernatural elements in a very tangible kind of way. And I thought that was brilliant.
Yes, and that Nick didn't leave the man's side. He came
Mhm.
back to make sure
Mhm.
that what they thought would correct it actually did correct it. Again, such a smart show. I love it so much.
Now, I'm not going to pretend that I fully understood what was happening with the Bonnie Scott because I was like spent most of the episode trying to be like, okay, where did this originate? Why are we talking about this? Why is it important? And at some point, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna let go on this journey, go on the ride. Eventually, I think now I understand like why we're where we're at. Um, so for the whole episode, I was kind of like, do I like this episode? But I really did enjoy the episode. Um, I like the way that they can weave in and out of the larger mystery and go down like the little nooks and crannies that we're probably not expecting. But I think we're gearing up for some big episodes and some answers.
Mhm.
For sure. Because when it was the opening of the episode and you find out that Nancy's mom was Lucy's guidance counselor, and I was like, how entangled are her parents in Lucy's story? Because it's fishy out here.
And then
Like,
she found the papers in the creepy family photo.
yeah.
I love the fact that that was the big mystery at the start of the episode, and then the episode became about her finding the papers, even though that wasn't the center of the episode. So they did a good job of delaying the story. We're not really going to know what that means until maybe the next episode or the episode after that. But it made this one really important because while Nancy was busy trying to find that, she also took down the Hudsons, no big deal. So it's just, there's so many layers to the story, and they keep peeling back one of them and then moving over to the other one. And it never feels like they're meandering around the story. It all feels like an important part of the story.
Mhm.
One last thing, I have to praise our girl Kennedy again. There is the scene, I don't remember who said it, but whoever she was talking to called her a college dropout. And she was like, first of all, I didn't apply. It's different. And it was, she had the greatest line reading of like, it was really funny in like an episode that was pretty heavy. Like
Mhm.
we never really get to see Nancy be humorous. She's always so serious. So I loved Kennedy's line reading of that. It was amazing.
She's so great. She always, it is everything with the way that she acts in her body, the way that she gives her line delivery, she's a great listener.
Mhm.
When as an actor, there's always something going on in her face. My favorite line delivery from her was when Owen was like, "Is it about Nick?" after they kissed, and she was like, "Not everything's about a guy," and she drove
Drove
away.
away like a baller.
It left them in such an unanswered kind of territory, because that whole episode, I feel like this was because of the dream she had. That was the moment where she kind of realized she did want him, and she was getting annoyed that he was ghosting her and didn't understand why. And then by the end of it, we're very much in a different place. So I don't know whether that's supposed to be toying with her suspicions as when it comes to Owen, but clearly Nancy's not certain of an awful lot of things, or maybe the way Owen was in this episode made her certain in a different way. I don't know. It's a very interesting dynamic, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it develops as the season goes on, because I feel like we're heading towards a big moment for them as well, and I'm not really sure what that is.
Same. I don't think she actually likes him, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
She was comparing him to Nick, but more so about the moral compass issue.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he would do anything for his family. So she's very wary of that.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if we're going to see that pop up in episode 12. We're 6 episodes away from the end. I just, I like counting down because I'm like, how much story do we have left? They're so smart. But I'm always like,
Mhm.
what are they building to?
So much.